Everyone seems to think that access to export markets is going to bring them more foreign exchange and be beneficial. One, it is difficult to achieve those export markets, partly because of all the health requirements of getting them and all the certification things that there are. And the other thing is that when you do have an export market, whether it's to the Middle East or whatever, there are many other players that are actually pretty darn good at the job too. So you've got the Brazils and the Indias and the Pakistans and the Australias and the New Zealanders who are pretty good, and particularly Brazil in some of its products. So that's the second point. The third part of that is that the biggest growing markets, particularly in East Africa, are the domestic and regional markets. So for Kenya, it's within Kenya, with this huge growth in demand, or within Ethiopia, or within Uganda, or between those sort of countries. So it's something that is a little bit prestige, if you like, but for many of the people who are involved, and let's say some of the big companies in livestock products in Kenya, they see the export as a niche, so a niche market, which is useful because you can get certain additional benefits. But what 1 or 2 companies do is they diversify. You've got a niche export for certain products. You've got a low income bracket market for certain very basic cheap products, and then you've got the things in the middle for the growing middle class. So, and often it's those domestic and regional ones that are much more important in terms of returns. I mean, we did a study for Ethiopia, looking at if they were to develop a big export for meat products that would meet SPS, that is sanitary and phytosanitary needs, and the sorts of things of screening animals, putting them through quarantine, re-screening because you have some that would be negative, and that type of thing, to get animals that were, or carcasses or products that were able to be exported. We found that in fact it wasn't those SPS costs that were the greatest costs. The greatest costs were the nutritional costs of getting that animal to the sort of quality that would compete with the Brazilian and the other products in some of these Middle East and other markets. So it's a complicated situation, as I hope I've tried to describe.
So what do you think about the commodity-based trade that Botswana is doing? Because they achieve access into the EU, and I would believe that if Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa would achieve this, I personally believe the EU would find some other way to keep all that livestock product to enter the market.
Well, actually, Botswana and Namibia it's not commodity-based trade from them because they've got these disease-free zones. So they have got disease-free zones that they can take out pretty well what they want. The commodity-based trade is rather the taking meat products that are coming from areas that do have certain epidemic diseases, foot and mouth disease or something like that, and that they are, through the organization, negotiating a bilateral trade agreement with whatever importing country it is. They export those products. That's the more the commodity-based trade. And while this is going on, it's been going on for years, and it's been going on very quietly. So you've got these international organizations that say, oh no, to export it's got to be through certain compartments, is the word compartment, and those compartments have got to be have strong biosecurity. I mean, the reality is that there are many companies, certainly in Kenya, that are exporting meat products to a variety of Middle Eastern countries, to India, feeding the troops in Afghanistan formerly, that are coming from. It's just that the commodity is seen to be quite safe. So it goes on, and say we've done quite a lot in looking at the returns from that. And so, but it's a question of of good agricultural practices, of getting yourself a good product, going for something like the whatever, I can't remember these different international standards, ISO 22050 or whatever it may be, and getting your little certification, going to get to the Director of Veterinary Services and getting the stamp on the paper, and off you go. So so these sort of things do happen. There are, as you were suggesting, the problem is that countries that are free of these diseases don't quite trust these arrangements, and so are always worried about them, and may find ways to say, no, we don't like that. So, but and it's unlikely that EU countries would ever engage in those sorts of things. I mean, they need to be very, very tight on all the disease things. But there are many other countries. I mean, there are products going to all sorts of different parts of the world through these bilateral trading arrangements. But one has got to be careful, and because you've only got to have one documented and proven problem associated with, and that's your market gone. Yeah.
No. Do you think that sometimes the fact that countries are actually competitors on the international scene, that actually if you come up with policy advice that should be applicable to all of them, it's actually not going to help them because in the end they're competitors?
No, I don't. I think it takes a lot to be competitive, to get your organizations to have this good management practices and your certifications for the health. It takes a lot of work. Surprisingly, there are very few big organizations or livestock commodity organizations that have got into that. I mean, you've got Alpha Fine Foods in Kenya that has been exporting fish to the EU for a long time. You've got Farmer's Choice that has been into this for a long time. You've got Zambeef down in Zambia, now opened up a sort of an ancillary organization in Nigeria for marketing products. But to be honest, these countries the organizations that are doing that, you can count on the fingers of one or maybe possibly two hands. And so it takes a lot of organization, and you're employing people. It's not an easy job to get to that. But nevertheless, the fact that there are people doing that or organizations doing that shows that it's possible.
Traceability of livestock. And that seems to be a key factor.
Yeah.
The certification of the processes and all that. What do you think? Is there an opportunity?
Traceability is an issue, and it will become increasingly an issue as whichever markets they will become more sophisticated and will require that more and more. So it is an issue. There's an awful lot of technologies out there, and there are a lot of experiences. Botswana and Namibia that we talked about today, I mean, they have both gone through different types of traceability exercises. The simplest thing is just having ear tags and having good herd records and understanding where animals are, and a good information system on your livestock populations. And of course, inevitably, many countries don't have that, and so an organisation that is such as the ones that I've talked about need to look at that traceability, because if something goes wrong, there is always going to be a question as to where that thing came from. And
there's maximization, there's optimization, and then there's social benefits, sort of the last step. Why is that important? Are countries very much stuck on the first step with maximization?
Well, inevitably they are. Inevitably they want to get, they're looking at margins, they want to have products, performances, or if it's government, they want to have documented contributions to GDP or whatever it is. The challenge, Henning's optimization is a challenge. I mean, because you need to be thinking of all of the other things relating to particularly to the environment, particularly to societal benefits, particularly to those sort of things of employment and these broader things. That's not easy to put in the equation. If you've got an organisation, a private sector organisation that's trying to carve out its own little niche, inevitably it's looking for its profit margins, and it's looking for its efficiencies and all these sort of things. So it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. I have my son-in-law who runs an organisation in Kenya, Mara Beef. If I tried to talk to him about optimization, he'd tell me to clear off because he's looking to try to make profits, and he struggles to make profits because of the narrow returns that he gets, and this battle in the market to buy things at the right price and set up the infrastructure that allows you to engage in a wider scale. So, I mean, I couldn't persuade him to talk about optimization. He would be definitely maximization.